from the line across the ocean to the land through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business,
This is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. First, the headlines. South Africa, Jacob Zuma to fight for his rights, election ineligibility. UAE, President Raisi buried in Iranian holy city, Mashhad. Asia, South Korea, Japan announces series of sanctions, weapon procurement. Europe, Putin ready to halt war in Ukraine, negotiated ceasefire. United States, Trump raises large sums, fundraising in Texas. Australia, footballer Barry Cable charged with historical sex offences.
and ready as Morrison Communications Limited proudly presents Children's Day Celebration 2024.
Arts. Small Hotel and Resorts, number 9, Room Calabar, off Waterlines, Basta, Port Hackett. On Saturday, May 25th, starting at 8 a.m. School march past competition,
Dance competition, drama competition. Parents, teachers, and children alike, don't miss out on the fun with Uncle Clown bouncing castle as we cut the Children's Day cake. Admission is just 2,000 naira per child. For participation and sponsorship opportunities, call us now 0806 673 8689 and 0810 634 1777.
This event is proudly sponsored by
National Magazine, Nigeria Brewery, Indomie, The Scented Room, Terranos Limited,
the Last Mall Hotel and Resort in 99.5 Wish FM Port Hackett, Lesuka Event Center, Gate Place Hotel, 8 Ball Hotel and Lounge, Oma Studio, Osgia Table Water. Remember that every child is unique. See you there. This event is managed by Pace Expressions Arts.
Special guest appearing, Hilda Dokumo, Children's Day Celebration 2024. Corruption not in my country.
Driver, why you does a jack? Cause up and down like this. out.
I hope nobody carry me. Hello.
Why you ask, oh?
Because this road where they see, so you no guarantee safe delivery. Oh.
We just dey vote for government, but we not get good governance.
At all.
Road so e no dey, light o usa, the infrastructure don come, e come turn to be forbidden fruit for the city. Corruption.
Everything. Hello?
Hello, madam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mrs. Ayeni. I am calling from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Okay. Okay, I've been expecting your call.
Madam, remove this your phone from loudspeaker.
Now my phone be like that. Hello?
Are you there?
I hear, I'm hearing you.
Yes. We saw a copy of your invoice for computers, printers, and laptops.
Yes. Are you working on them now?
Ma, the prices you quoted are way too high now.
Madam, sorry, please don't call.
We found the laptop you said is 1.8 for 600,000 naira.
Hello?
Now my body network there.
I can't hear you. Network is bad.
Madam, we can hear you. Continue.
Hello, I can't hear you. We call you back.
Their behavior not good now.
Madam, now this kind behavior they kill our country. You suppose do things differently. Make Nigeria for better.
Corruption not in my country.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Corruption not in my country.
I don't get a lot. Boy, they won't booga me small. They say, man, give them bribe. I say nothing. Okay now, we'll go block later. You remember that contract we do that time now? They don't pay.
But first, you see the house rent with the old things. Go first call caretaker, take the money, slap am.
Beg, see, you know, say I get annual levy. They pay for club. Where me and boys they shout beer now. I supposed to pay that one. You remember say me I take I go buy motor. I go buy now.
Okay, they pay you money now. We don't they beg caretaker? We they beg landlord, old man, and they agree give us time. Money can't come now. You won't divert time. You said na corruption. Corruption not in my house and not in my country.
Sure.
Corruption not in my country.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Now the news in details. South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma said on Thursday that he will fight for his rights after the country's top court ruled that he was not eligible to run for parliament in next week's election. The Constitutional Court ruled on Monday that Zuma's 15-month jail sentence for contempt of court in 2021 disqualified him from standing in the May 29 vote. as the Constitution prohibits anyone given a prison sentence of 12 months or longer from holding a parliamentary seat. Decisions of the Constitutional Court cannot be overruled. Judges of the Constitutional Court have taken a decision that I can't exercise my freedom, my democracy, Zuma said in a YouTube video shared by his Mkonto Wisizwe party. I am going to fight for my rights until this country agrees that freedom must be a complete freedom, not for some and oppression for others. While Zuma's name will be removed from MK's list of parliamentary candidates, his face will remain on the election's ballot papers, as he is the registered leader of the party. Zuma endorsed MK in December when he announced he would not campaign for the governing African National Congress, which he led from 2007 until 2017. He resigned as South Africa's president in 2018 under pressure from current ANC leader Cyril Ramaphosa's allies in the party after 9 years as head of state marred by corruption scandals and slowing economic growth. Zuma's jailing in 2021 triggered riots in his home province of KwaZulu-Natal, in which more than 300 people died. The riots morphed into a wider spate of looting. There had been fears that this week's court ruling could prompt a violent reaction from Zuma's supporters, but that has materialized. The Israeli military said on Friday, after they were killed during the October 7 Hamas attack led by militants, it said the bodies of Hanan Yablonka, Mikhail Nissenbaum and Orion Hernandez were recovered overnight in a joint operation by the army and in the intelligence services in Jabalia. In northern Gaza, where there has been intense fighting in recent days, the bodies were identified by medical officials at the Israeli National Forensic Institute and the Israeli police, the military said. Israeli forces, officials and Hamas media said. Israeli tanks advanced in Rafah's southeast, edged towards the city's western district of Yibna, and continue to operate in on the edge of Yibna, which is densely populated. They didn't invade it yet, one resident said, asking not to be named. It was the new exodus of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fleeing their homes and have cut off the main access routes for aid, raising the risk of famine. Israel launched its assault on Gaza for more than 250 hostages by Israeli tallies. Since then, Israel's assault in Gaza has killed more than 35,000 people, with thousands more feared buried under the rubble, according to Gaza health authorities. President Ibrahim Raisi was buried in the Iranian holy city of Mashhad on Thursday, as many thousands of mourners packed its streets for his funeral, 4 days after he died in a helicopter crash, footage broadcast by Iranian media showed. Raisi, 63, was widely seen as a candidate to succeed 85-year-old Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who wields ultimate power in realities. Flowers were thrown at his coffin as it moved slowly aboard a truck through throngs of mourners to be buried at the gold-domed Imam Riza's shrine, Iran's holiest Islamic site and revered as the resting place of the 9th century Imam Ali al-Riza. Raisi hailed from Mashdad, 900 kilometers east of Tehran. Earlier, thousands had paid their respects as his coffin was driven in a motorcade through the eastern city of Berjand. 8 passengers and crew were killed when the helicopter crashed in mountainous terrain near the Azerbaijan border. They included Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian. Iran proclaimed 5 days of mourning for Raisi, who the presidential election has been scheduled for June 28. A ceremony was held to commemorate Amir Abdullahian at the Foreign Ministry in Tehran, where acting Foreign Minister Ali Bagheri Khani described him as a martyr who had guaranteed the revolutionary nature of the Foreign Ministry. Amir Abdullahian was buried south of Tehran in the city of Rey's Shah Abdulazim Shrine, a mausoleum where notable Iranian politicians and artists are interred. The United Nations has resumed transporting humanitarian aid arriving at a U.S. built pier off the coast of the Gaza Strip after deliveries were halted for 2 days because some truckloads of aid were intercepted by needy Palestinians. Aid deliveries began arriving at a U.S. built pier on Friday as Israel comes under growing global pressure to allow more supplies into the besieged coastal enclave where it is at war with Palestinian militants, Hamas, and a famine looms. The UN is coordinating aid distribution at the floating dock, but has remained adamant that aid deliveries by land are the most viable, effective and efficient way to combat the humanitarian crisis in the enclave of 2.3 million people. The UN has said at least 500 trucks a day are needed to enter Gaza. 10 truckloads of aid driven from the pier site by UN contractors were received on Friday at a World Food Program warehouse in Deir al-Balah, but on Saturday only 5 loads made it to the warehouse after 11 others were intercepted. The UN halted transport for 2 days while it came up with a new route. WFP spokesperson Shazar Mograbi said on Thursday that deliveries resumed on Tuesday with 17 trucks arriving at the warehouse, while on Wednesday there were 27 trucks. All commodities have been accounted for to my knowledge and no incidents were reported. Mograbi said, adding that some aid is for WFP to distribute while the rest is for other aid groups operating in Gaza. The PA operation announced by U.S. President Joe Biden in March is estimated to cost $320 million and involve 1,000 U.S. service members, but Biden made it clear that no U.S. troops would set foot in Gaza. A U.S. official said on Thursday that so far, some 800 metric tons of aid had been delivered off the pier to a staging area. You said that as of Tuesday, more than 307 metric tons of aid had been transported from 2 onward points. The sanctions applied to individuals, organizations, and ships related to Russia's alleged procurement of weapons from North Korea in breach of UN Security Council resolutions. Seoul's foreign ministry said sanctions had been slapped on 7 North Korean individuals and 2 Russian vessels over weapon trade and other activities between Pyongyang and Moscow. The Russian vessels had been carrying a large quantity of containers between Russia and North Korea, transporting military supplies in a clear violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, the ministry said in a statement. The United States and South Korea have accused North Korea of transferring weapons to Russia for use in its war in Ukraine. Moscow and Pyongyang have denied the accusations, but vowed last year to deepen military relations. Japan also announced sanctions on 11 organizations and 1 individual, including what it said were Russian groups involved in military cooperation to support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia's procurement of arms from North Korea violates the relevant UN resolutions that completely prohibit the transfer of arms and related materials to and from North Korea. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi told a news conference. According to South Korea's foreign ministry, 1 North Korean individual representing a state-controlled company based in Syria held negotiations and helped raise funds to support Pyongyang's development of nuclear and missile programs within islands near Taiwan, boosting its capacity to monitor an area where China has built up its military presence, National Security Advisor Eduardo Ano said on Friday. He said the new station, less than 200 kilometers from Taiwan, which China claims as its own territory, will improve Manila's ability to monitor the Luzon Strait, a vital international waterway south of the democratically governed island. Ano said the area around the town of Bayat in the Philippines, Batanes Island, was the scene of a military build-up in 2022 after China had responded to political developments between Taiwan and the U.S., the island's key foreign backer. China's corresponding naval response was observed in the Luzon Strait, Ano said in a statement. The strait, traversed by multiple cable systems, is a transit zone for vessels moving between the Philippine Sea and the contested South China Sea and freedom of navigating along the Luzon Strait, Ano said. Ano said the new station would allow the Philippines Coast Guard to combat foreign threats and crimes at 10th, in which more than 16,000 troops from both sides participated. China staged mock missile strikes and dispatched fighter jets carrying live missiles along with bombers on Friday, state broadcasters said. as part of formations in waters east of Taiwan, carrying out mock attacks in coordination with naval vessels, it added, as China tested its ability to seize power and control key areas of Taiwan. The 2 days of drills in the Taiwan Strait and around groups of Taiwan-controlled islands near the Chinese coast, which a Taiwanese official said also included the mock bombing of foreign vessels, started just 3 days after Lai took office on Monday. Taiwan has condemned China's actions. China views democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory and denounces Lai as a separatist. It strongly criticized his inauguration speech, in which he urged Beijing to stop its threats and said the two sides of the strait were not subordinate to each other. The Eastern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Party said the exercises, dubbed Joint Sword 2024A, were set to test the ability to jointly seize power, launch joint attacks, and occupy key areas. This action is completely reasonable, legal, and necessary to combat the arrogance of Taiwan independence and deter the interference and intervention of external forces, said Wu Xiang, a spokesperson of China's Defense Ministry. India's incoming government will be greeted with a $25 billion check from the central bank, giving it the option to either boost spending or narrow the fiscal deficit quicker, both of which will be cheered by investors. On Wednesday, the Reserve Bank of India announced a record 2.11 trillion rupees dividend transfer to the government, more than double New Delhi's and street estimates, leading to a decline in bond yields and a rise in equity markets. The Stop-Loss Fund can help the new government, which will take charge after the current elections, bring down its fiscal deficit by 0.3% of gross domestic product or increase spending on infrastructure or populist stimulus, CT researchers Samiran Chakraborty said. The bond markets would likely hope that the government follows the deficit reduction route, while the equity markets would likely prefer the government taking the expenditure increase one, said Chakraborty. During the election campaigns, the opposition Congress promised annual cash handouts of 100,000 rupees to poor women and unemployed youth. The party's star campaigner Rahul Gandhi also promised debt waiver for farmers, but Prime Minister Narendra Modi of the Bharatiya Janata Party has avoided promising any new major welfare measures. Despite higher revenue from the RBI dividend, we doubt the government would opt for more populist expenditure in its budget if the government is BJP-led, said Freya Sudani, an economist at Barclays. The current government has not shown a disposition towards populist spending, even in an election year. The BJP-led government resisted the temptation of spending trillions of rupees on schemes for the poor in its last budget before the election, while raising spending on infrastructure to 11.11 trillion rupees, more than 3 times the sum spent in 2019. You are watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break.
Na just the last minute instruction wey you give me yesterday. Na im dey cause more delay. Shebi na you say make I change the meter make you no read again. Oh, Kasali, why you dey do like this now? Eh? You no get sense. You no read the text message. No be you I wan send am to. Na Kasali, my electrician, make he come house, call me, do my meter so that you no go dey read again. So you call Kasali electrician, make it come help you adjust your meter, make it for no reason again, abi. So you said you want join people where be say they no want they pay NEPA bill again, abi. Oga, e no good now. You don't use them, you don't dey behave like all these stiff people. Oh, what you change for your motor? What you change for? Full light. Fuel gauge. Speed odometer. Two. I bet you change that for me. Corrupt. And something come back and I go come dey find how to dodge them. What you talk? I dey greet you.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Corruption not in my country.
What you want to buy?
Potato. Small baskets. I want plantain. But why your plantain come hard like this?
Madam, now the outside hard. Inside there, it is very soft.
Madam, wallahi make her no buy am. Make her show you something. What? Madam, this one now the chemical what they put on for the plantain make her ripe up.
So you dey put chemical for plant people go chop.
Now water, no be chemical.
Madam, water. You know say Pela I don't talk and say water and not be enemy. Drink am.
Where you collect that water, drink am.
I just stop finish. See my belly. It don't big. I just stop drink water finish. I don't
drink. Wait, you drink am. Madam. I dey sell am plantain. I go come put am for chemical. I want to make a ripe go. That's one I talk and now corruption. Corruption. No be for this kaswa.
Corruption not in my country.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on
Welcome back. This is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Now the rest of our stories. Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready to halt the war in Ukraine with a negotiated ceasefire that recognizes the current battlefield lines for Russian soldiers, told press, saying he is prepared to fight on if Kyiv and the West do not respond. Three of the sources familiar with the discussions in Putin's entourage said the veteran Russian leader had expressed frustration to a small group of advisors about what he views as Western-backed attempt to stymie negotiations and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's decision to rule out talks. Putin can fight for as long as it takes, but Putin is also ready for a ceasefire to freeze the war, said another of the four, a senior Russian source who has worked with Putin and has knowledge of top-level conversation in the Kremlin. He, like the others cited in this story, spoke on the condition of anonymity, given the matters of sensitivity. A total of 5 people who worked with or have worked for Putin at a senior level in the political and business world. The fifth source did not comment on the freezing the war at the current front lines. Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov, in response to a request for comment, said the Kremlin's chief had repeatedly made clear Russia was open to dialogue to achieve its goals, saying the country did not want eternal war. Ukraine's foreign and defense ministries did not respond to questions. The appointment last week of economist Andrei Belosov as Russia's defense minister was seen by some Western military and political analysts as placing the Russian economy on a permanent war footing in order to win a protracted conflict. European Union's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, said on Friday that recognizing a Palestinian state was not a gift to Hamas. Ireland, Norway and Spain said on Wednesday they would recognize a Palestinian state on May 28 to help secure a halt to Israel's Gaza offensive after the Hamas attack on October 7 and revive peace talks that stalled a decade ago. Recognizing the Palestinian state is not a gift to Hamas, quite the contrary, he said. The Palestinian Authority is not Hamas, on the contrary, they are deeply confronted. He added the EU already talked, financed and met the Palestinian Authority. Every time someone makes the decision to support a Palestinian state, the reaction of Israel is to transform it in the anti-Semitic attack, he added. Judges at the UN's top court will rule on Friday on South Africa's request to order Israel to halt its Rafah offensive and withdraw from Gaza, part of a wider case accusing Israel of genocide. South Africa's lawyers asked the court last week to impose emergency measures and said Israel's attack on the southern Gaza city must be stopped to ensure the survival of the Palestinian people. Rulings by the International Court of Justice, also known as the World Court, are final and binding but have been ignored in the past. The court has no enforcement powers. Israel has repeatedly dismissed the accusation of genocide as baseless. It has argued in court that the operations in Gaza are self-defense and targeted at Hamas militants who attacked Israel on October 7th. An Israeli government spokesperson said on Thursday that no power on earth will stop Israel from protecting its citizens and going after Hamas in Gaza. The Israeli military spokesman for the army is operating and where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have sought refuge from Israeli bombings and operations elsewhere in the Palestinian enclave. A decision against Israel by the highest UN legal body could pile more diplomatic pressure on the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Several European countries said on Wednesday the Palestinian state and the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, also based in The Hague, announced on Monday he had filed an application for arrest warrants against Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, as well as leaders of Hamas. The ICC prosecutes individuals for alleged war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide, while the ICJ is for disputes between states. The ICJ has previously rejected Israel's demand to throw out the overall case. The court has ordered it to prevent acts of genocide against the Palestinians and allow aid to flow while stopping short of ordering a halt to Israeli military operations. Israel launched its assault on Gaza after Hamas-led militants stormed into southern Israel, killing 1,200 people and seizing more than 250 hostages. According to Israeli tallies, more than 35,000 Palestinians have since been killed in the offensive, Gaza's health ministry says. British nurse Lucy Letby on Friday lost her attempt to overturn her conviction for murdering 7 babies and trying to kill 6 others. Letby, 34, was found guilty last year of killing 5 baby boys and 2 baby girls at the neonatal unit of Countess of Chester Hospital in northern England. At a hearing in April, Letby put 4 grounds of appeal involving submissions that the trial judge had wrongly refused applications she had made during the trial. In a very brief hearing on Friday, the Court of Appeal said her appeal had failed. Judge Victoria Sharp, announcing the court's decision, said that we have decided to refuse to leave appeal on all grounds. The judge added that a full written ruling will be delivered at a later date. No further details can be given for legal reasons. Letby is due to face a retrial on 1 count of attempted murder at Manchester Crown Court next month. Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader of Britain's Labour Party, said on Friday he would stand as an independent candidate at the general election on July 4th, in a move which could lead to a potential upset for Labour in his North London seat. Labour, ahead of the governing Conservatives in the poll, suspended Corbyn in 2020 following a report into how anti-Semitism complaints were handled under his leadership. Corbyn was Labour leader at the last election in 2019. He has held the Islington North seat since 1983. Labour officials have not included the 74-year-old in a shortlist for candidates for the seat, prompting his decision to go it alone as an independent. I want our political parties to be democratic, but members of Islington North Labour have been denied the right to choose a candidate, Corbyn said in a video announcing his plan. So we have to stand up and say we're not. Benjamin Netanyahu would soon address a joint meeting of Congress amid heightened tensions with President Joe Biden over the Israeli leaders' handling of the war in Gaza. Delivering a keynote speech at the Israeli Embassy's annual Independence Day reception, Johnson, the top congressional Republican and a critic of the Democratic president's Israel policy, said it would be a strong show of support for the Israeli government in their time of greatest need. Such a speech is sure to further anger progressive Democrats critical of Israel's military campaign in Gaza and Biden's support for it. Netanyahu has closely aligned himself with Republicans. The diplomatic gathering in Washington comes amid strains between Biden and Netanyahu over a U.S. push for Israel to do more to protect Palestinian civilians, in the war against Hamas militants in Gaza. The embassy gave equal billing to Democratic U.S. Representative Pete Aguilar, who shared the high-profile platform with Johnson at a more subdued event under the shadow of the Gaza war. As Americans, we reaffirm our commitment to Israel's sovereignty, he said. Speaking first, Johnson said to Applause, "Tonight, I'm happy to announce we will soon be hosting Prime Minister Netanyahu at the Capitol for a joint session of Congress." Successive U.S. administrations have usually sent a high-level official to the Independence Day receptions. Vice President Kamala Harris, who in recent months has called the situation in Gaza a humanitarian catastrophe and has urged a ceasefire, delivered last year's keynote, mostly extolling U.S. backing for Israel. An Israeli official said this year the embassy wanted to honor lawmakers in a bipartisan way in appreciation for congressional approval of billions of dollars in new military U.S. aid. The reception took place on the same night as a White House state dinner for Kenyan President William Ruto, which the Israeli officials said created a scheduling conflict for cabinet members. Several less senior Biden aides were in attendance, including Derek Chollet, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's counselor. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump raised tens of millions of dollars during a fundraising swing through Texas this week, promising he would support the oil and gas industry by backing new pipelines and restoring fracking on federal land. Trump has courted support from the energy industry with a pro-fossil fuel and anti-regulation agenda and regularly criticizes President Joe Biden's policies to accelerate the energy transition towards a low-carbon economy. The oil and gas industry has boomed under Biden despite increased regulation and the more climate-focused profits and pumping more oil and gas than ever before. The industry has pushed back against Biden's ban on fracking on federal land, a recent half in approving new gas export facilities. A Houston fundraiser on Wednesday was hosted by oil billionaires Jeff Hildebrand, founder of the Hilltop Energy, the largest closely held U.S. oil firm, George Bishop, founder of GeoSouthern Energy, Harold Hamm, founder of Continental Resources, and Kelsey Warren, head of Transfer Partners. Trump drew standing ovations, promised to get more natural gas pipelines built if elected and to restore fracking to areas barred under Biden, said Mark Carr, a Houston entrepreneur who was in attendance. Many oil and gas pipelines were delayed or abandoned under both Trump and Biden's administrations due to community opposing legal challenges and lengthy permitting processes. He is going to get energy going again in the United States, said Carr, who founded the Houston area Christian Brothers automotive chain. Trump said America needs to create Venezuelan oil and instead use American oil, said another attendee who declined to be named. The United States has resumed limited imports of Venezuelan crude under Biden for processing at U.S. refineries. Trump has emphasized tax cuts for the industry, streamlining the permitting process and removing certain regulations, said donor and oil executive Dan Eberhardt, who was in Houston for the event. We can't drill our way to energy security and low gas prices, said Eberhardt. The Australian Rules footballer Barry Cable has been charged with historical sex offences against a young girl. Western Australian police alleged Cable sexually assaulted a girl aged between 9 and 10 during 1967 and 1968. The 80-year-old has been charged with 5 counts of indecent dealing with a girl aged under 13 and 2 counts of unlawful carnal knowledge of a girl under 13. Cable was renowned for his football career in the Victorian and Western Australian football leagues between 1962 and 1979. He was on the winning team in 2 VFL premierships with North Melbourne and 4 WAFL premiership sides and won the WAFL's Best and Fairest Award, the Sandover Medal, 3 times. Cable is scheduled to appear in the Perth Magistrates Court on Thursday. And that's today before we go on other stories. South Africa, Jacob Zuma to fight for his ineligibility. UAE is buried in Iranian holy city, Mashhad. Asia, South Korea, Japan announces series of sanctions, weapon procurement. Europe, Putin ready to halt war in Ukraine, negotiated ceasefire. United States, Trump raises large sums, fundraising in Texas. Australia, footballer Barry Cable charged with historical sex offences. I am Valentina Lawrence. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on all our social media platforms: X Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok Atlantic TV Network 1, or you can watch us live on our website atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you. Do not go away.